Good morning, folks. Welcome to today's webinar, where people are gradually joining the session. It's 10 o'clock here in the UK. It may be a different time where you are, but it's good to see that people are starting to join us from different places. My name is Dan. I'm from Social Enterprise UK. I'm joined today by Natalia and Baravan, who I'll introduce properly shortly. We'll give people a few minutes to join. We've already got 20 or so that's fantastic. So thanks for joining. And we plan to hold the session for around an hour, hopefully finish by 11 UK time, and there'll be a chance to hear from Natalia and Baravan, and hopefully from you guys as well. So we'll have hopefully at least 20 minutes, half an hour for a more open discussion, and give you a chance to participate. Just give people a little bit more time to join. I can see we've got 20 or so that's really good. So we've got a good basis to make a start. Okay. Okay, so proper welcome. As I say, I'm Dan. I work at Social Enterprise UK, leading most of our international work. Social Enterprise UK, as I suspect most of you know, is a membership body. We have around 3,000 social enterprise members based all across the UK. And our job really is to do our best to support them to grow, to develop, to flourish, and to make a positive impact on the world around them. But we do focus not only on the UK, we do quite a lot of international work. And over the last 10 years, we've worked in sort of 20, 30 or so countries around the world. And I think it's been a fantastic experience for SCUK to learn from developments, from the practice and policy happening all over the world. So we've been working in countries from South America and Jamaica to Sub-Saharan Africa, North Africa, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, South Asia, to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia. So very different contexts, very different kind of challenges and cultures and legal systems. But often, I think it's been clear that we, as ever, we have more in common than divides us. That we meet really passionate, extraordinary, kind of committed social entrepreneurs who, despite the situation they're working in, or despite government policy, or despite the economic climate that they're working in, or social conditions, they're doing a fantastic job in improving people's lives and the environment around them and the communities that they serve. So the aim of this session is to help share some of that knowledge and that learning. We've held two similar sessions in the last few months. I think the first one was with colleagues in Southeast Asia, where Thailand and Singapore and Malaysia are really kind of sort of full of momentum and commitment at the moment around social enterprise, and there's quite an active government role at the moment. And we have our partners at Social Enterprise Thailand, at Raise in Singapore, who shared experiences that made us kind of quite jealous, I think, in the UK of some of the energy there at the moment. Whereas we often, as elsewhere, as others do, get frustrated with government policy sometimes. And then we heard from Jamaica and Colombia, where I think in Jamaica, for example, they didn't have a social enterprise network like we do in the UK, but actually in policy terms, they were also pressing really far ahead, and also learnt from experience in Colombia, which was going through a particularly difficult time then, I think still is, but really interesting to hear about some of the challenges facing social enterprises in really tough conditions. So I'm really delighted in our kind of third session to move to a different part of the world. It's kind of I think we've talked about the Eastern Mediterranean as the region. I think I just made that up. I don't know if that's appropriate as an official region. But I'm really delighted to be joined by Baravan from Turkey and Natalia from Lebanon, and who also has experience in a range of other countries in that part of the world. So yeah, it's sort of a different region, different challenges. I'm sure there's many similarities between the situation in Turkey, Lebanon, and the UK, and also many differences as well. So I will let them introduce themselves. I think we're going to hear from Baravan first, but just to say, Baravan is a sort of long-standing partner of Social Enterprise UK. We've been delighted to work on a number of research projects with our colleagues in Turkey, led by Baravan. And it's been great to kind of not just work in one country and move on, but to establish that relationship and to grow that and work together and support each other. So that's fantastic. And similarly with Natalia, working on research and mapping and understanding the state of social enterprise on projects with the British Council, our friends there as well. So it's great that we've kind of hope to build these networks and keep them and keep learning from each other and keep sharing knowledge. And I hope that can continue today and in the future. So I will shut up and I will pass on to Berivan. Please, Berivan, please introduce yourself, and it'd be great to hear a bit of your perspective from the Turkish context.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's really great to be here, finding a platform to share what's going on in Turkey and also to hear from the participants and learn together. And it's been really great working with Social Enterprise UK. We learned so much from you. And really that state of the social enterprise report we did in Turkey, it's really having very positive repercussions, government agencies, private sector organizations using it as a baseline. And it's been really, really useful for everybody. So let me introduce myself briefly. Right now, I'm here on behalf of Turkish Social Entrepreneurship Network. I'm the co-founder of Impact Ankara, which is going to be up and running soon in 3 months' time. I hope. And before Impact Ankara, I was working at the Center for Social Innovation hosted by TED University, again in Ankara. And there we ran an incubation program for social enterprises for 5 years, supported more than 200 social enterprises in different support schemes. And before that, I worked for the EU delegation to Turkey. I was at the assessment, evaluation, programming part, doing aid effectiveness checks and social impact measurement in general. We had a different terminology for that, result oriented monitoring. Before that, I worked for UNDP in the youth development area and for youth NGOs as a field coordinator, doing mostly capacity building work. So I will try to provide a brief framework, what's going on in Turkey in general, and also in the social entrepreneurship front. While during COVID, social entrepreneurship in Turkey gained strength. Really, we saw a lot of people, of course, advantaged people, who has the means to do so, moving from their corporate careers to the social entrepreneurship area, starting different support programs, and also we saw a lot of innovative collaborations among existing actors. But it has been the latest political and economic situation in Turkey has been really detrimental in the last 6 months. Independent from COVID, we saw Turkish lira, losing a lot of value, and also inflation rates now, even officially, rising up to 40%. And in like food prices, we are seeing almost 2 times increase, and really people are starting to talk about deep poverty. We had the refugee situation, in the last 10 years. Officially, we have 4 million refugees in Turkey, 3.5 million Syrians, and the rest is Iraqis, Afghans, and Iranians. But with the latest influx from Afghanistan, now the xenophobia and also discrimination against migrants is rising, and the situation is worsening. Of course, in the last 10 years, the government's approach, to deal with the refugee situation has changed. At first, we were calling refugees guests, temporary guests, and now we are. The government, not we are, because they're really fragmented groups, with different views, opinions on that. The government is realizing that people are going to stay here and we should work on integration. And entrepreneurship, and also especially social entrepreneurship, is being used increasingly as a way, to address this situation. I will talk about those things briefly in a moment, but let me continue with the panoramic view. So during the COVID era, civil society, collaboration between civil society and civil society organizations and social entrepreneurs increased. Number of support organizations increased, especially the role of higher education institutions. They took on a lot of functions, opening up their facilities, and also starting incubation or accelerator programs or award programs, capacity building programs for social entrepreneurs. All those things are on the increase. There is no legal or financial regulation in Turkey that recognize social enterprise. So social entrepreneurs are building their own ships, to be able to navigate within the ecosystem. They are crafting a lot of workarounds, a lot of innovative fiscal and legal, let's say, structures. Access to finance is a very big issue as everywhere in the world, but most of the grant programs already existing was not open because of small administrative details to social enterprises, and those obstacles or those blocks are now being removed, which is a good sign of, again, support for social enterprises. Access to market efforts are on the increase as well, from the private sector, again, modeling what Social Enterprise UK is doing with the Buy Social campaign. Those things are gaining traction in Turkey as well. On the skills development and business development part, it was always, the picture was always brighter. There were the training programs. Now we are moving finally to the training of trainers parts and trying to create a good base of skilled people working on that area in Turkey. Also for the impact management and measurement, again, it's a big noisy area, but the quality outputs we see is not many in number, but again, now actors are taking it more seriously. Most ecosystem actors are taking it more seriously and trying to come up with alternative management schemes, not donor focused or funder focused, but coming from bottom up. Those talks have started finally. Yeah, that's the main panorama. We had 3 big restructuring in Turkey in the government side, names of ministries changing, and also the whole management system of the country changing many times. And also we lost 2 very important focal points, which were horizontal ministries. Ministry for Development exists no more. So we lost a lot of the, policy support work that we already got at some points. So that part is not, there are some things that you wouldn't expect to be there, because the major structures are not there, but still you see a lot of experts at the expert level from different government institutions doing their best to find a way to support social enterprises. So they are really innovating. Let me give an example. We have this program called Sivil Düşün. It can be translated as Think Civil, They are, because you cannot transfer money or give any grants, to activists or social enterprises without no legal entity. They are using a different type of fiscal sponsorship. They are acting as the wallets of the social enterprise themselves. So they are buying all services and supply for the social enterprise. So they just take out the transactional parts just to support social enterprises. So in Turkey, almost more than 10%, but in the British Council report that we did, it was around 10%. 10% of social enterprises don't have any legal entity, so they invoice their customers or beneficiaries, using, for example, their father's photo shop, like a photography shop. Especially in young people, avoiding bureaucracy is common, and Turkey is again ranking in ease of doing business charts is decreasing, because, for example, just before the COVID pandemic, the government made it obligatory for every enterprise in Turkey to have a bank account in one of the public banks to be able to pay their taxes. And you should go to a bank branch, you should do it face to face, and there's a long list of, documents to turn in. Yeah, young people, especially since they make up 50% of social entrepreneurs in Turkey, under the age of 35, they avoid all the bureaucracy they can. They try to avoid all the bureaucracy they can. So they are coming up with workarounds. They do perform a lot of, organizational bricolage. They bring different things together to manage hybridity. We have a lot of hybrid structures. Again, I was talking about building their own ships. Like they are innovating with the existing structures. There's a parent for non-profit entity and for-profit subsidiary, or there are sister brother organizations working in tandem, and they come up with their own governance structures or transparency structures, and doing a lot of self-regulation there. For example, we have this platform called Open Social Enterprise, and as a social enterprise, you go register to that platform, you share your financial reports, business models, information on your shareholders, board members, employee numbers. If you have any independent audit reports, social impact reports, you upload all of them to the platform. And then when somebody is asking you those questions, you just direct them to that platform. So you try to create legitimacy using third-party platforms. Another thing that is used is the international certification programs, of course, such as B Corp or fair trade marks. But of course, those are costly processes and complex for most of the social enterprises because they are micro enterprises. They don't have enough budget or staff or repository of work to deal with that. All of those workarounds are becoming interesting in refugee support mechanisms, especially the cooperative model, use of cooperatives as a social enterprise solution is gaining a lot of traction. The World Bank now using EU funds, by the way, facility for migrants, the FIRIT funds in Turkey. World Bank, together with the Ministry of Industry and Trade, who is in charge of regional development agencies. There are 26 regional development agencies in Turkey, and 11 of them are situated in refugee-dense areas. So with 11 of those regional development agencies, now they are dispensing really huge amounts when you compare the other kind of amounts, in the field, huge amounts of money in the form of grants or in the form of support for social enterprise support organizations to the field. And you can see that the kind of formats they want is cooperatives bringing together what we call host communities, Turkish women, especially economically disadvantaged women, and refugee women. And those cooperatives are geared, all their work is geared towards creating livelihood for those women. Since, again, money transfer issues like paying wages to Syrians in Turkey, for those people in the refugee status is very problematic. those cooperatives are also working, functioning as fiscal fiscal sponsorship agents. That's the most suitable legal form or status, that fits into the existing gray areas of the Turkish law. And we see a lot of, by the way, positive reports and research focusing on this refugee and host community collaboration. And we see that this kind of collaboration serves really best to refugees' self-reliance, also promoting positive outcomes to deal with the xenophobia and discrimination issues. Because in those models, refugees just being a part of the cooperative, they do offer employment opportunities for Turkish host communities as well. It's a very big issue, like in every country, migrants are here to steal our jobs. Discourse is everywhere. So this is creating a good, positive, image for the refugee women, especially themselves. We have, for example, 4 new women's cooperatives supported by the EU fund used by the World Bank. And they are working in really diverse areas, not only making tomato paste. This is a big thing in Turkey. We call it the tomato paste lobby. Every women cooperative making tomato paste, or a traditional soup, dry soup material that we call tarhana. They are doing. The good thing about those projects are that the Ministry of Industry is now outsourcing work to social enterprises who do capacity building work for other social enterprises. For example, we have June.world in Turkey. They are using design as a capacity building tool. And also they are doing really good market research for cooperatives, for women's cooperatives, to see, with what kind of goods they should come to the market. So they are doing baby clothes, they are doing catering business, they are doing cleaning business. That kind of stuff is now, we are seeing more and more examples of it. So basically, those are some good practices from Turkey and the panoramic view. Thank you, Dan.
That's fantastic, Bevan. And yes, that's the tomato paste lobby. That's a really new one for me. So I need to find out more about that. I'm not sure. I think, we have similar maybe in the UK. I don't know whether we talk about it as sort of canned beans or something. One of our famous cooperatives does kind of health foods and does Suma does kind of tins of beans. So maybe we can pinch that vocab. It's tomato paste, lovely. That's great. Okay, so Natalia, it'd be really good just to hear similar from you about your experiences and your perspective from Lebanon. We've already got some questions coming in as well. So thank you so much, Bevan, for that fantastic introduction. And Natalia, please, be great to hear a bit from your view of the world.
Thanks, Dan. I'll introduce myself in a second, but Bevan, we also have the jam syndrome in Lebanon. So I think it's something that's very common and that people usually go to as an easy means to produce something for better livelihoods. And I'm very happy to see that George is with us as well. So George is the president of the Lebanese Social Enterprise Association, and they've also been doing a lot of work to try to bring social enterprises together, but also contribute to the policy development. So just before I go into the Lebanese context, my name is Natalia Manhal, and I'm a partner in an entity called Beyond Group, and we do work on policy development, organizational learning, and innovation and technology integration with the public sector primarily, and entities that influence the public sector, particularly in countries where the public sector needs support from different organizations. And one of the sectors that we've been highly involved in, particularly because we feel that it's one of the tools to contribute in bringing bringing citizens and governments closer together is the issue of social entrepreneurship. So our work is not only related to Lebanon. So we've done a lot of work on social enterprise recently with SEUK on social enterprises in the UAE, but also with the British Council in Iraq, Yemen, Jordan, Palestine. But definitely, I think after Berivan started speaking, I felt, okay, I can just take everything you said and just replace Turkey with Lebanon, and then we'd have like a very similar context. So definitely a lot of the challenges that Berivan mentioned in terms of social economic failures, more like complete collapse, is definitely the state I would describe Lebanon now. So we've witnessed, as many of you probably heard or are hearing, so we're facing one of the worst financial crises in modern history globally, with inflation rates that have reached more than 150%, the local currency losing up to 85% of its value, 40% of all graduates immigrating outside of Lebanon, more than 60% of Lebanese people now living below the poverty line, with unemployment rates soaring up to, I mean, these are the latest numbers. Most of them are from 2020 and early 2021. So a lot of things have worsened over the past few months as well. So with unemployment reaching around 40%, comes COVID, the COVID-19 crisis, with a lot of businesses having to shut down and even more people being let go of their work within their jobs. And then in August 2020, we had the port explosion, the Beirut port explosion, which left thousands and thousands of people homeless, having to look out for themselves, to rebuild their homes, to rebuild their businesses, or many of them to leave the country. So add to this the refugee crisis that we've been dealing with as well for the past 10 years. Similarly, like Turkey, I think Lebanon has been one of the countries that has hosted a large number of people. Unfortunately, this has also been used to fuel political tensions and reinitiate some tensions, some latent tensions that were already existing within our communities since the civil war, tensions that are primarily sectarian, tensions that are quite xenophobic by nature, I would say. So a lot of these have left the few social enterprises that are already working and that have been working for a very long time, and some that were more at the nascent and early stages of development. They left them more responsible and with more issues to tackle, especially in light of the complete absence of state at all levels, whether it's the COVID crisis or the explosion or any other kind of support. So in general, the Lebanese government has been described as one of the most as a failed state, let's say, especially now. In 2019, we witnessed as well popular demands to topple the government, especially that there has been no real reforms and not even any efforts to amend some of the challenges that the population has been dealing with. So this is a very light description of the current context in Lebanon. On the brighter side, and as I mentioned, so Lebanon, and I would say as well, this is something that I will say about the region in general, is that the issue of social solidarity and the issue of cooperation and collaboration is something that exists and that has existed for a very long time and is part of our culture and our community. So people will not stand on the side if they witness social injustices, which are quite frequent and very, very evident in our society. So this concept and this culture of social solidarity has existed, and thus the models of cooperatives that have existed for a very long time in our communities, but also civil society organizations, NGOs, and more recently companies, I mean, legal models, legal entities registered as companies with more focus on creating impact and making change and helping communities deal with certain issues. So this concept and the fact that it has existed in our culture has really allowed a lot of entities to operate within that space of social solidarity and social economy. And as Berivan mentioned as well, like finding turnarounds the laws to be able to deliver the social impact that they want to deliver, with all the challenges of not having the necessary support system, not having the necessary laws or frameworks or financing mechanisms that would help them do so. Entities and people have come together in different forms and shapes. Many of them are registered in either as cooperatives, as NGOs, or as companies, and many of them, as Ed Berivan also mentioned, work through informal settings, which is a big part of our economy as well, to deliver a certain service or product that people need and that helps solve social issues. So in light of this, I'm going to give a brief about social enterprises and the overall environment, and then you can only imagine, and then I'll move into how the current crisis also affected them, and maybe George as well, if you're still around, maybe you can give as well your own experience with this. George, like many other entities, social enterprises, George is part of Shriek, which is a social enterprise. And like many other social enterprises in Lebanon, they've been working on particular issues with communities while facing some challenges, particularly related to, as I mentioned, the structures and some challenges and barriers that the law sets out to them, depending on their context. Like, for example, cooperatives that have been co-opted by the political system from a very long time ago, seeing as they could have real influence in terms of making this change happen and making it sustainable. So one is the legal models, definitely the issue of access to markets, which has been a long-term issue. How can we expand our scope and our market to make sure that we're sustainable, but also to make sure that we can reach out to entities that may contribute either to expanding our impact or making us more financially sustainable. The issue of access to financing, which has also been a major barrier from the moment we started talking about social enterprise models in the country, and the fact that there hasn't been any adapted mechanisms for these social enterprises to access financing, and then financing that is either not that isn't connected to banks, and that's another part of the problem that we're facing. So that the banks and their operations now. So either something that isn't a commercial loan and that isn't a grant, to find mechanisms that are somewhere in the middle to help these entities. Other challenges that they've been facing, that the ecosystem has been facing, is the fact that there aren't really a lot of support services that are specialized and adapted, particularly, again, the issue of social impact measurement, like Berivan says, is just a big gray area where people try to find tools and try to support each other and try to publish their impact. Very few actually do. And this trickles up into the type of support that they are receiving from support organizations. How adapted is it? How equipped are these support organizations actually, how equipped are they to actually support these social enterprises? the issue of the fact that it's not contextualized, as I mentioned, but also the fact that it does not cover all stages. And this is primarily linked to the fact that most social enterprise support programs are programs that are connected to external donors and external support organizations and donor organizations. And thus the capacity to influence the design of these programs is very, very limited. Two, there's a lot of duplication, as Berivan mentioned, but also three is that they come in and we're very grateful for these programs, don't get me wrong. At the same time, they come in and usually the first stages of development of social enterprises are the easier stages to deal with in terms of, yes, we give a grant, a bit of seed funding, etc., some coaching, some mentoring, some training, and then that's it. Unfortunately, this leaves social enterprises in a place where they either receive the same service over and over again, or they manage to grow and then they get to a ceiling which they cannot cross anymore, whether in terms of market or impact or financing, etc. So they get to a point where they don't have any opportunities to grow, and the entities effectively the entities or the social enterprises that have developed over the years, that have gained momentum, still depend on competitions, on small funding, on maybe from time to time you get like these attempts to create or to mobilize additional support services, including financing services for one or two entities to grow. But apart from that, any support on the more maturity and scale up and support is non-existent. So this is overall the space. I would say it's not nascent. The support services are mostly nascent. We have a few entities that are specialized in social enterprise support, but very, very few. And given the culture and given the needs that the country has, and how social enterprises can fill this gap or can contribute, there's a lot of work that can be done. One of the things that we've been working on with the LSE and government, and unfortunately, we've also witnessed a huge political deadlocks and 3 changes in governments. And so we have been working on a policy framework for social enterprises in Lebanon, one that is very contextual and that takes into account, as I mentioned, the different legal models that already exist and that already operate as social enterprises, with particular criteria that respond to the overall definition of social enterprises, with the option of, or with the end product in mind being a certification process that allows entities to access particular incentives. This process has been going on for around 5 years. We have managed to reach out. It's been mostly bottom up. So like, for example, like LSE is a bottom-up approach to bring the social enterprises together. The policy process has been a bottom-up process where we came together as entities that are active in the sector to try to suggest a policy framework for government. And effectively, government endorsed it, and we are working on a draft law. But with all the political issues and challenges that we've faced, it has become a bit. It is currently on hold, and we're hoping to kick it off again as soon as there's a collaboration with government. As soon as we kick off collaboration with government, hopefully one that is more that reflects people's ambitions. Last but not least, so this is already how social enterprises are in Lebanon and the challenges that they face. On top of that comes the financial crisis and the issue of banks not providing or imposing an informal capital control on all our money, and the fact that there's a massive brain drain that has been happening, and access to human capital has become extremely difficult. Retaining people in the country has become extremely difficult. Moreover, people are now completely focused on their primary needs. We've had health issues, hospitals are barely operating, but also there's no access to health. And I know that George, through one of the initiatives that Sheikh has done, has tried to as well contribute to providing people with their basic medication. So we have been getting a lot of donations from Turkey and from the UK and from all countries for medication. So in light of all of that, social enterprises have had to focus on the basic needs of the people that they're serving. And so I think a lot of them has also had to, oh, Michelle just joined. Hi, Michelle. So a lot of them also had to focus, and Al Fanar, for example, has been working with social enterprises in Beirut to help rebuild a lot of the businesses and a lot of the houses and a lot of, and bring families together again. So I think, I mean, the overall vision of the sector, or the overall status, is one that is very, very positive. And it needs a lot of work, of course, but a lot of actors are trying to do something and to push it forward. The challenge, I think, has been, I mean, the number of crises that has come in the way is a bit too much. And I think it just requires social enterprises to focus again, something that is a bit difficult to do nowadays in the country. So I'll stop here, and then Michelle, George, and any other person who's from the sector and who would like to add anything about it is mostly welcome. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you, Natalia. And yeah, that's great to have George here and Michelle as well from Al Fanar, as people that have been really active and busy in social enterprise in Lebanon as well. So thank you. No, it's great, Natalia. We've got 20 minutes or so, and a couple of questions already. I think there's kind of two pots of questions. One about legal form and legal status, both in the UK and in Turkey. And Natalia's already told us a little bit about how that's working in the Lebanon and the progress, but not quite there. And it's a sort of roller coaster. I think in every country we've worked in, we found that the policy process for things like legal form is kind of progress and back, and 2 steps forward and 1 back. And it's very unpredictable and often a long journey to develop new policies that support social enterprise. So the other question was around sort of business success. And I mean, from my perspective, as a kind of policy wonk and a researcher, anyone that actually runs a business at all looks like a success, let alone someone running a business with a double or triple bottom line, and let alone a business with a double or triple bottom line in the kind of conditions that you've been describing, Natalia, which is you know, unbelievably challenging. So if I was running a social enterprise in Lebanon, that just doing that itself would count as success, let alone how you measure success beyond that. But maybe you could have a think about that, and we come back to you, Natalia, to sort of make a comment on how success can or should be measured. But in terms of legal form and legal status, Berivan, maybe you can tell us a bit about the process in Turkey. I mean, in the UK, on one hand, it looks like a success. We have the community interest company model in the UK. It's got 20,000, 25,000 kicks we have now, which is an incredible success in terms of just take up. But I would also say that doesn't mean we've solved it. You know, the kick is still just one legal form amongst a range of legal forms that social entrepreneurs continue to adopt. So they continue to use trading charities, they use cooperative models, they use private limited company models. Kick is another tool in that toolbox. It's another option. It's a fantastic option, but it's still one of many options. So there's no country in the world really we've seen where you can solve the legal form kind of question. You can improve the landscape, you can make it better, adjust forms, introduce new ones, but there's always a sort of gaps and holes and problems. Those are legal forms. There's then also the question of kind of legal status, that whatever legal form you register as, can you have an official kind of stamp as a social enterprise? And some countries have tried that as well, in Thailand, in Vietnam, in Denmark, and that's with mixed success as well. Again, there's no one country that's kind of solved that. There'll still be some social enterprises that won't have that stamp. There'll be some people saying, well, why should I? What's the benefit? Because maybe it doesn't bring particular tax benefits or investment benefits. So, you know, however difficult it feels at times in Turkey or the Lebanon or Malaysia or Jamaica. There isn't one country that solved this, and there is no answer. But Bervan, perhaps you can tell us a bit about progress in Turkey and whether you feel you're getting closer to a better sort of system.
Yeah. Until now, what has been done successfully in Turkey is removing the roadblocks, like removing the obstacles. For example, cooperatives were not eligible for, applying to entrepreneurship support grant schemes. Now they can. Or, for example, social enterprises were not seen as receivers of civil society funds because they are active in the trading area. Right now they are. So that kind of obstacle removing is being done successfully to a certain extent, I can say that. But drafting a law part, we, for example, as the Turkish Social Entrepreneurship Support, it's a network of social enterprise support organizations. We are the ones trying to, put the feet on a brake there, because now if you bring in a legal framework in Turkey, you will just if it's not a framework law like what's been done in Belgium recently, or in France, then it will hamper, it will have detrimental effects on the growing, especially the innovatively growing side of social enterprises, because now we see a lot of different legal forms, identifying themselves as social enterprises, and they are just following the form follows function principle. Whatever legal form suits their fund looking behavior or size, or whether they are going to employ people or not, that kind of different choices they make is easier in different forms. So we have trading arms of charities, we have cooperatives, we have startups, we have big projects that started as CSR projects, corporate social responsibility projects of big corporates, but spinned off or spinned out of the corporate, which are really strong in the institutional setup, but the kind of place they occupy in the ecosystem is not visible. They are hidden, buried within the ecosystem. So we have every kind of actors, and we really want to keep that richness, just to give more breathing space to the social enterprises, because in Turkey, lawmaking going through the parliament, those are lengthy processes. We have a lot of, now the presidency system took over lawmaking in a really interesting way. One morning you wake up and everything is changed. It's not really going well on that front. We lost the lobbying power. Like, for example, just give me an example. Yesterday, Turkey declared that it is now a signatory endorser of the Paris Agreement, and the line ministries didn't know that. It was a decision that was taken within the presidency. Nobody knew. They just decided on themselves. So we have different now decision, centers and everything. We don't know who to lobby. But I can say this, the Ministry of Trade, they were working on a social cooperatives law. They had the draft ready, but it's now, I don't know, they put it on the shelf now. It's going to wait. We don't know why. But the World Bank also, because of this refugee and host communities thing, social cooperatives law is the most likely that's going to happen in Turkey. And of course, we do support that as well, a gradual development. You start from somewhere and then you add on, and then at some point you introduce a framework law. Why not? If we can solve the decision-making crisis, democratic decision-making crisis in the country in general, of course. But right now we just want the government to remove the barriers, to make everything more flexible, so that social enterprises, they can work around things. They can find the solution, because the government is so very clear. They are not going to introduce any tax incentives, and if there is no tax incentive, then really the legal form thing is not very attractive either.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think many countries, people assume if we have a legal form, it will give us all these benefits and all these incentives. And actually, that's very rare that in any country you find that. Natalia, the question was from Guyana in Sri Lanka. So yeah, fantastic to have someone with us from Sri Lanka today. A question around kind of success and how success is defined other than just surviving. Is there anything else to say about that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, things that we can already count as successful within the social enterprise ecosystem in Lebanon. Definitely at the time, currently it's surviving is our biggest success. At the same time, social enterprises, are trying to come together. And I think the creation of networks, whether at the level of social enterprises or support organizations, is very important, but also opening up this conversation with government. So I think 2 or 3 years ago, this was not seen as a possibility. And for us, especially because we do not think that social enterprises are to be held responsible of social impact in general on their own. They need government and they need other support organizations, but primarily government to contribute to the development of the sector. And so this conversation with government is quite essential. And for us, it is one of the stepping stones of how the sector can develop and how social enterprises can develop. But as you said, Dan, social enterprises are already working in Lebanon with or without a legal framework. Definitely a legal framework with additional incentives could help remove some of the barriers, but also give these social enterprises more access to better opportunities to generalize their solution into and contribute and serve more people. At the same time, they're already working, and this is a success. And I think now institutionalizing some of that work and partly that has already started. So Al-Fanar, for example, has already started helping social enterprises set their impact measurement models, access different financing opportunities. Michelle mentioned that they are launching an impact investment fund soon. So there are some major stepping stones that have already been done or that are being thought of to support social enterprises that already exist. There's a lot of awareness that has gone into closing the gap between young people, between communities in general, and the social entrepreneurship concept. Just like a lot has gone into this communication between government and social enterprises, and that's as well. We're witnessing more and more interest in social enterprises, more and more interest in buying social without even thinking of the framework. So there's a lot of awareness that has already gone, and this is primarily due to the work that social enterprises have done with communities. And so success today, while quite ambiguous and difficult to measure, I think definitely social enterprises have set a bar in terms of working on increasing awareness within their communities, in terms of increasing, access in general of communities to the services that they're providing. So as well, I think these are definitely elements that we can include when looking into success. And I think one of the things that are essential in Lebanon, given the current culture that exists due to the previous experience with civil society organizations, is pushing forward these collaborative networks of social enterprises together. And the fact that we are moving ahead with this, so LSE is one of the networks. There has also been recently with the crisis, a group of people created a network for cooperatives to come together and learn from each other. So as well, like creating these networks around legal models has also been useful. And now, like moving this effort into this conversation with government is definitely a success factor, regardless of the outcomes of the process. So these are from our side.
Right. No, exactly. Thank you. And the collaborative network point, I think, relates very much to what I wanted to cover with the final question. So Pascal from LSE asks about how can we collaborate with social enterprise across Lebanon, UK, Turkey. And I think I would say to a degree we already are, because there's things like this which are about sharing learning. SUK has worked on projects with Berevan and Natalia and with Alfanar and with others. So we, to a degree at that kind of network level, we're already doing that. In terms of sort of more direct relationships, while I give Natalia and Berevan a chance to think about your answers, I think from SUK's perspective, we've increasingly focused over the years on our sort of bi-social work. So yes, investment, impact measurement, policy, these are all important, but actually I think we found that not many parts of the ecosystem have put focus on helping social enterprises get to market, to get more customers. So this is what a lot of our bi-social work, our bi-social corporate challenge work is about, is getting social enterprise products in the shops, getting them on supermarket shelves, finding them customers, getting in the supply chains of big corporates, is getting more money to flow to our social enterprise members. And I think maybe there's more that we can do between, us, Turkish Social Entrepreneurs Network, Beyond Group, LSE, Alfanar, in terms of linking up. If we know that there's a business in Turkey or Lebanon that is looking for routes to market, if we know there's an organization in the UK looking for products to get into their supply chain, maybe there's more we can do to help buy social, across international boundaries. But yeah, the last words, and we've got kind of 3-4 minutes. So maybe Berevan and then Natalia, what more can we do to collaborate across our kind of countries and contexts?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Really, what your answer is already something that I would, support to the full extent. We are thinking now as the Turkish Social Entrepreneurship Network, more information activism. We have a lot of pipeline work, like it's not seen, it's not visible, but just people do not know the solution, lying around, or do not know the opportunities. People do not come together very often, or they need translators, to explain to each other, even though they speak the same language, like how they can collaborate. So, like a matchmaking, in the classical literal sense among different institutions, and also really just making sure that everybody accesses the existing opportunities. Natalia said that people are getting more the same kind of support over and over again. It's again the same in Turkey, and also we have a lot of, for example, social entrepreneurs traveling from one award program to the other, taking all the trophies and just making a living out of that, because they can't access to the market properly. So that's, making even letting people know the kind of barriers that social enterprises face, the right people, finding the right people in the right organization, and translating the situation among the related parties makes a huge difference.
Yeah, great, thank you. Natalia, please.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing. I think having these platforms like today, for example, is a good platform. I think having these recurrent platforms where people can come together independently of where they are geographically, I think this is really important. And I think COVID-19, the pandemic, has helped us realize that geographical boundaries do not make any sense and are irrelevant. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do is with the different stakeholders in Lebanon to start bringing these people together. I think the policy conversation has helped us bring people together, and I think we need to build on that, and to continuously have data from social entrepreneurs to understand their needs, because they also have changing needs. So yes, now they need access to markets, etc., but they could also have other needs, internal needs that that may hinder their development, that may hinder their access to other things. And so I think having continuous conversations together, maybe not necessarily through webinars or meetings or whatnot, but having some sort of mechanism to continuously have this data and work with this data through collaborative networks and platforms, I think this is what would really help.
Yeah, I totally agree and totally support that. I realize it's 1 minute to 11, so we've kind of run out of time too quickly, and I wish we had a bit more time to carry on, but I did promise that we would finish at 11 UK time. So yeah, all that's left for me to say really is thank you, first of all, to Chris and Shihan at Social Enterprise UK for helping make this happen, but above all to Natalia and Berivan for joining us today, and thank you so much for sharing your insight and perspective and to be part of this collaboration. But also thank you to everyone else who joined us. I think Tracy might have left us, but I'd probably close with Tracy's words in the chat, which are about that, you know, we do have different sort of challenges and barriers, but actually many of them are very similar, even if they're for different reasons. We share, you know, a lot more in terms of the challenges we confront than we realise. But one thing that Tracy said rises above all else to her was that we are stronger together. And I think that, you know, the sense of trying to work together across those sort of crazy boundaries and creating those networks of collaboration, sharing learning, linking up and just continually making those links and joining up people that can help each other and be of mutual support to each other is what we try and do with our work. And I know that Natalia and Berivan will keep doing that together as best we can. So yeah, thank you all for joining. Chris and Shihan can share some of this material later, and it will be available, I think, through our website. But yeah, thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Berivan. Great to see you, and hope to see you again very soon.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you,
Dan. Bye. Nice to meet you, Natalia. Bye-bye.
Bye.